So the question is, can two governments tax the same people without destroying each other? And in Federalist 32, Hamilton answers with a good deal of confidence. He says, yeah, if they serve the same people and if they both know their limits. So this particular essay defines how state and federal taxing powers can coexist, proving that unity doesn't mean uniformity. I'm Matt Haskell. I'm a high school history teacher, and we're making this journey through all 85 of the Federalist Papers, and we're up to number 32. And this one may not be real sexy, but Hamilton's going to get into some taxing issues. And so the fear that Hamilton is addressing here is kind of familiar. I mean, if the federal government can tax everything, well, the states be left with nothing. Well, critics imagined Congress draining every source of revenue and leaving the state governments effectively powerless to function. And Hamilton says that their fear is misplaced, not because taxation isn't powerful, but it's because the Constitution carefully preserves what belongs to each level of the government. Hamilton's thesis here is both rather simple, but it's got a sprinkling of brilliance behind it. He says, and he writes, the state governments would, by this plan, retain that authority in all cases to which it has not been exclusively delegated to the Union. So, in other words, the Constitution doesn't erase the states, it just draws boundaries around shared authority. And the federal government's power is exclusive only where the Constitution explicitly makes it so. We'll clear this up. It'll end up in the 10th Amendment when the Bill of Rights is added. But anywho, Hamilton identifies three exceptions, three cases where the states cannot act. And one is where the Constitution grants exclusive power to the Union. For example, like coining money or regulating foreign trade. The second exception is where the Constitution prohibits states from acting, like states entering into treaties or imposing import duties. And then the third exception is where the state power would directly contradict or interfere with federal power. So everywhere else, state authority remains intact. And that's the framework of American federalism, the layering of the government. In applying this logic, Hamilton argues that taxation is a concurrent power. It's shared by both state and federal governments. And once again, he writes, the individual states would retain an independent and concurrent authority to lay taxes, except as to duties on imports and exports. So, as long as both governments tax for legitimate purposes, they can coexist without any type of, collision. So, Hamilton acknowledges that yes, the federal government has greater scope, but that doesn't mean it will abuse it. Why? Well, because both levels of government are accountable to the same source, which is the people. Once again, he writes, the people, by their immediate representatives, hold the reins of both, meaning state power and government power, or federal power. Now, the real balance of power isn't written in the parchment, it actually lives in public opinion. So Hamilton describes the federal and state governments as partners in one system, each essential to the other's stability. So the federal government handles national defense, foreign policy, general welfare. The states handle local administration, justice, and everyday needs. And so their overlap isn't a flaw, it's the strength of the system. It's like two concentric circles that share the same center, and that same center is the people. So if we look, if we get to our chain of reasoning of this particular essay, one, power belongs to the people first, full stop. The second one is that the people delegated some powers to the federal government, but the rest they retained and entrusted to the states. Both can tax and govern, except where the Constitution says otherwise. And finally, harmony comes from consent, not from competition. There you go. That's Federalist number 32 and 5 easy steps. So, Hamilton's tone here is rather patient. It's rather logical, because he's not trying to rally emotion. He's actually taking the time to define principles. He knows the stability of the Union depends on mutual respect between its different parts. And he's going to insist that the Constitution isn't a ladder of authority. Instead, it's this web of interdependence. And so Hamilton's moral argument is about trust in shared purpose. The states and the federal government are not rivals. They are co-guardians of the same liberty. And when they remember that, government works. When they forget, that's when the division begins. And so Hamilton's voice here in this essay continues to speak directly to modern debates about taxation, states' rights, and federal authority. He reminds us that conflict between levels of government is not failure, it's the system that's functioning as intended. I think I've said this before, but it's tension, when properly managed, keeps liberty alive. Now, our takeaways here, one is that the Constitution divides power without destroying it. The second point would be that taxation is shared, so concurrent power between state and national governments. It's all shared. And then third, federalism's success depends on cooperation and accountability to the people. Number 32 is Hamilton's, it's like a blueprint for balance. A government that's strong enough to act, but yet it is humble enough to share. So he's teaching that true sovereignty doesn't mean exclusivity. It means harmony through shared responsibility. And so for Hamilton, the Constitution isn't about domination, it's about design. So once again, I'm Matt Hasquin, and this is one of those things we should all know by being alive. If this episode helped you with seeing how Hamilton envisioned federalism as a partnership, please take some time to share this. Follow along with me and hang around, because we're going to tackle Federalist number 33, probably tomorrow. And this is where Hamilton tackles the most controversial clause of all. This will take us into Article 1, and Article 1, Section 8, where we get into the enumerated powers of Congress with the necessary and proper clause, and what that really means for federal power. Thanks for watching.